Ладно.
Все равно их будут передавать.
Жень, а ти будеш тут стояти, чи там де крісло? Ну, я дивлюсь на тебе.
Да. Так, це ваш мікрофон.
Да.
І я кладу
Отут.
спікером.
Я краще, може, where is the tablet? Тоді... А не оце? Не оце? Так, це. Так, я пропоную.
Раз, два.
Вони не включені, так?
Я у вас не сказал.
Можна просто подати. І просто під стол прибрати, так? Да. I would invite you. I think I would give give the introduction. Then we would see the video, and then I would invite the panelists one by one, given the introductions. And then, yeah, okay.
One, two. One. Is it working? No.
It works. Ah, okay. You can hear it with this. Okay. Is it supposed to be so that we just hear it from? Okay.
Can you hear me? Yeah, you can. Okay.
But you can't. So this means that everyone has to. Oh, okay. Makes sense. Yes. But how will the video work? А як буде працювати відео?
Doesn't? Have you checked? I think you need to switch something on. 1, 2, you can hear me. Okay. The audience would hear the headset. Okay. So possibly you should just get the headset. Fantastic. This is the first time we're starting. So like everything that's like should be tested would be tested on us. That's great. So to hear the audience, Heather and Imogen, you can't hear me from here. No. No, okay. So this means that the whole audience should be wearing like this, okay, the headset. It looks like yours is switched on. Shisha? Да, makes sense. Да, okay. Fantastic. I would invite you, Alex, I would invite you. So I would give the welcome word and then we'll watch the video and then we'll invite. Okay. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for waiting. It's like a little bit, okay. Sorry, everything that can go wrong would go wrong. Dear fantastic technical team, just a second. Остановите, can you please stop the video? Да, конечно, нужно и это убрать. Смотрите, я открываю, а потом я говорю, когда включить видео. Хорошо, вы включите только. Да, и самое начало сделайте, и нужно вот это вот убрать. Да. Все. Не, пусть будет так. Да. Thank you very much for your patience. And good morning, everyone, and welcome to Ukraine's Pavilion. And I hope that you managed to have a look around. And actually today, the first day of COP, and we're all looking forward to very important negotiation that will be taking place for 2 weeks. But I think that here we begin with one of the most urgent intersections of climate action and global security. And I'd like to start, as far as we're here in Ukraine's pavilion, that the brutal invasion of Ukraine brought many challenges to the forefront. And we will talk about them a lot during these 2 weeks. But none of these is as urgent as energy security. But within this challenge relies an unprecedented opportunity. Because we're not rebuilding here in Ukraine, we're building new institutions, we're building from the scratch, and we are transforming Ukraine's future as it is. We are transforming Ukraine's energy future, and we are contributing to the global security. And today, we will explore the Energy Security Marshall Plan, a bold initiative that combines immediate security needs with a vision for clean energy deployment and regional stability. But to fully understand what are the challenges and what are the opportunities, I would like to invite you to watch the video that would show what the Energy Security Marshall Plan is about. Немає звуку. as you haven't seen but read, the stakes couldn't have been higher, but in the meantime, the opportunities could not have been more significant. We have to take my microphone back, I suppose. You can't hear me. Okay, we can. Okay. And here at COP, on the first day, we are fortunate to have distinguished speakers that managed to find their time and to join us today. 4 experts would be bringing unique perspectives on energy security Marshall Plan and the importance of what energy security of Ukraine and what it means for the whole world. And I would like to invite here Alex Carnot-Duhoux, who is joining our panel discussion, who is the president of Elected Officials to Protect America and Marine Corps veteran. Alex has been instrumental in developing the Energy Security Marshall Plan, bringing his unique experience in both military service and clean energy advocacy to bear his critical initiative. Alex, can you please join the panel? The second distinguished guest that I would like to invite is Imogen Pater, Executive Director of UK Friends for Ukraine, where she leads international cooperation and actually the creator, the idea maker of Energy Security Marshall Plan. And in her fantastic work that she has been doing so 24/7, every single day, she has been making this collaboration between UK and Ukraine, but actually uniting the whole world to help Ukraine be Ukraine. Can you please join us? Heather, I'm very much flattered when I'm given the introduction to the speakers because they're so great and they have been standing here for Ukraine since the very single day. And Heather Buchanan, who is serving like CEO of Bankers for Net Zero. I think it's to welcome you, join like with the dancing. And apart from being a fantastic financial expert and with the more than 20 years experience in sustainable financing, she has been welcomed by some fantastic music to join our panel. And she would be very crucial for us to explore the funding pathways for Ukraine and for Ukraine's energy transformation. Thank you for being here. And Mayor Oleg Serniak, he is the mayor of the Postomity City Council that would bring the essential experience on the ground level, sharing his incredible resilience and resistance being the head of the city in Ukraine, but as well bringing the innovation and perspectives on how we can build Ukraine better, but actually create Ukraine even better than it was. And it was always a fantastic country, right? And Alex, as far as you are the president of Elected Officials to Protect America, and we're helping to make it work, while all the credit, would go to fantastic Imogen that has been there, the idea maker. But I think that you're the best placed person to say why and how Ukraine Energy Security Marshall Plan was implemented, how and why Elected Officials to Protect America see it, and to understand as what would be most important pillars of Energy Security Marshall Plan for Ukraine to be in place.
Well, thank you. And thank you for everyone for coming as we kick off COP29 here. Ukraine has an unbelievably important role to play to show the world that we can lead on energy security and how we don't need fossil fuels to be secure. So the idea of the Ukraine Energy Security Marshall Plan really came from a program, Elected Officials to Protect America on the on the international side, Elected Officials to Protect the Earth has called a Certificate in Public Leadership run through the University of San Francisco, where we bring lawmakers, folks on the ground with amazing climate solutions, and the finance side together and work on everything from emotional intelligence and public leadership to value-based communications to negotiation and body language. But the most wonderful part of it is actually the policy teams that are created. And at the end of that, we have a policy prize. And Imogen was in the certificate program, and their team came together and said, hey, we should create an energy security Marshall Plan for our policy idea. And from there, it really blossomed. Recently, we brought everyone together from the think tank world, including the German Marshall Fund, the Atlantic Council, the Truman Center, to the government officials from the State Department to the Ukrainian ambassadors, deputy ambassadors and others to focus on what an energy security Marshall Plan would be, and including businesses like GE and Siemens. And of course, the lawmakers from Ukraine, the United States, and the UK were actively involved. And after that, we started working on the components of the energy security Marshall Plan. But let's take a second here to think about, if we can go to the next slide here, why this is so important. Because fossil fuels are unbelievably unsafe. And it is painfully apparent in Ukraine because half of the infrastructure for energy has been destroyed, probably more by now, actually. This winter is going to be rough. I mean, Ukraine is unbelievably resilient. It got through the last 2 winters. Fortunately, it was warmer than a normal winter was. But this winter could be 18.5 gigawatts of peak demand. And unfortunately, they lost about 9 gigawatts recently. So, and the UK and the rest of Europe are jumping in with a 1.7 gigawatts of energy supply, and the repairing the nuclear energy will give about a 1.7 gigawatts of energy coming in, but that still leaves another 6 gigawatts of people who will be in the dark and cold. And that's about the equivalent of peak demand in Denmark. It's a significant amount. So the worst case scenario could be 20 hours without electricity. And what does that mean, though? That means no water, no movement, no heat. And that is deadly, especially if you're elderly and you're on a 14th floor in an apartment and you can't get down to get water or food or supplies. So it has serious consequences. It goes beyond that, though, sadly, because it also means a lot of people will leave Ukraine, right? And we need people in Ukraine to keep the economy running, to keep the war effort going. The other unfortunate part of that is a lot of the factories and manufacturing require electricity. And so this is part of the war effort too. It is a strategic resource. So let's flip that though. What is the best way to keep our energy secure? It's not fossil fuels because they're just sitting targets. We know exactly where they are. They're literally explosive, and it's infrastructure that is easy to target. Renewables, like clean energy, if we can go to the next slide, are the opposite. They're distributed. And wind turbines are amazing in that you can spread them across the fields, actually in the agriculture fields like we see in the US. 2/3 of Iowa's energy comes from wind because the partnership between the farmers and the wind turbines. And the missile that can take out a wind turbine costs more than the wind turbine itself. All 19 of the turbines 100 kilometers from the front lines are still standing. Solar is just unbelievably resilient, right? The panel over here was destroyed, but replaced in a day. It's distributed, it's clean, it's cheaper to make. So what we focus on is how do you bring this together with the Ukraine Energy Security Marshall Plan? So bringing together microgrids with secure energy, with battery storage, is one of the solutions that the Ukraine Energy Security Marshall Plan is looking at. And it's nothing new. The US military, doing this across all their bases, 2035, the Army and other branches will have 100% of their bases in the US powered by clean grids because they understand how much more secure it makes us. And so makes sense to do this in Ukraine. And it's an amazing opportunity because Ukraine is a powerful country. in many senses of the word. Only 0.4% of the potential wind power could power the entire Ukraine. 0.46% of the solar power, according to the University of City study. Going beyond that, Ukraine could power Europe 6 times over with its wind energy, 4 times over with its solar energy. It's actually a bigger country than people think. It's about the size of Texas, and it's significant. So with this, it's an amazing opportunity to be part of Europe, working with Europe, and creating energy security for all. The other wonderful thing about it is Ukraine can deploy this much faster than anyone. It's the 3rd most energy country when it comes to clean energy in Europe. And it can take decades for other countries to do certain projects. Ukraine has done this in months. It's pretty amazing to see the resilience and speed they're doing it. So let's go to the next slide. And looking at how it's also a warfighting advantage. When I was in the Marine Corps, I would have loved to have vehicles that were battery powered, clean batteries that I could recharge without having to go to the diesel generator that emitted tons of noise and a heat signature. So they're very distinct warfighting advantages too when we look at clean energy, which is also something the US military is looking at. But we'll look at the plan itself. You can think of it in 3 areas. There's the policy arena, where we need to look at what policies can be changed and tweaked to enable the investment and the direct aid to happen. So that's everything from geopolitical risk insurance to tax credits to the grants and that are provided and needed to spur the industry coming in. But then it's also the sister cities and regional areas, which Imogen has been diligently and amazingly working on to create these partnerships between cities and regions so that we have the technical assistance, we have the more financing coming through, and the accountability between the areas, between the Europe, UK, and US particularly working at, and Australia. And then, of course, there's direct aid. Where can we make an impact in specific areas that we're choosing? A couple pilot areas, about 3 at least with the German Marshall Fund, and a couple more with the Marshall Plan itself. And of course, we can't forget the training and the supply chains that are needed for this too. So that's a quick overview. There's so much more to the Energy Security Marshall Plan, but I just wanted to highlight the political changes and tweaks that we can make, the sister cities and regional partnerships, and the direct aid portion of it. And we can ask questions later what those actually mean and some of the entails and real examples of it. And then let's round this out and thinking about how this is not just Ukraine, this is global. OPEC and OPEC Plus, all but 2 are dictatorships. So the single most effective thing we can do to protect the planet environment while making us more secure and promoting international security is to take the financing away from these autocratic governments. That we can do this. So Ukraine can lead the way with the technology, with the procedures, the supply chains that are built up, not just for security, but resilience. Sadly, climate disasters are getting more intense and they're happening more frequently. And as a result, the same work, the same blueprints can be applied to making us more resilient to the climate disasters of the future. Because sadly, already over 100 million people are displaced worldwide right now. So we have a lot of the financing lined up. We have the ingenuity, the creativity, the strength, the resilience in Ukraine. It's now a matter of putting it in the right spot to create a more secure planet with Ukraine leading the way. So, thank you.
Wow. I even want to applaud. Thank you very much. And thank you for giving such a comprehensive overview. And thank you for continue staying for Ukraine, because no matter what happened a couple of days ago, you are here. And having this American backup, it's hugely important these days. So thank you very much. And thank you for sharing this vision. But I would like now to pass on actually to exactly the person who within the certificate program that was started by the elected officials that's carried out every year, it was the fantastic team that was led by Imogen. But my question would be mainly both ways. How did you come up with this idea? That's the first point. And second, as far as you have UK Friends for Ukraine that have been helping so much, like what was the most challenging part within the energy security, which you could observe? And what type of partnerships work the best? But mainly, firstly, tell us about your story and how you came up with the idea, how you felt it.
Yeah, so I would like to say a huge thank you to Alex and EOPA, because without their support, it would have just been an idea. And I know it was something they were passionate about to begin with. So there is a lot of thanks to you as well. But I co-founded and run a UK humanitarian organization. We take political delegations to Ukraine, but we also try to help out where we can with charity partners on the ground, different oblasts and administrations, to see what we can deliver. And I think increasingly, I think this is the third year I've been to COP where we've spoken about a tough winter for Ukraine, and it's a tougher winter, and this is the third year on, and we're seeing that through our work on the ground is the blackouts are lasting longer, they're more frequent. And one of the big challenges we've faced is actually getting hold of our charity partners in certain areas. We go to Sumy and Kharkiv, and sometimes it can be days before they're able to charge their phone. And I think one of them, and Darka, who's not here yet, but she was part of my team for the Marshall Plan, but we were helping her with some projects up in Chernihiv in the north. That was one of the first occupied. So one of the first that really felt, well, one of the many, but one of the first to feel the effects of Russian occupation. And going there and seeing, community charging hubs where they could only get enough power for one community facility, and people were traveling for miles. We saw the same in Kherson. That's not a way of life for anyone. And we're letting this happen to civilians. This is regardless of war. This is what is needed. And then you throw the war on top of everything where things are getting worse. So that's why I really felt this was a massive need, because if civilian life, as you said, Alex, isn't continuing, how can Ukraine ever be expected to win? And as we all know, they're fighting the fight for everyone. They're the shield of Europe and the rest of the world. So it's incredibly important.
Thank you very much. And within your activities that you have been holding, like within UK Friends for Ukraine, what is your personal take on how you can better coordinate this international direct aid things? Because you were there on the ground almost from the day zero, and I saw like how great your help was when you were like shiveted through the borders, like fighting with all of the burdens that you can come across when crossing the borders from Poland or wherever to Ukraine. But I think that we are learning fast, and definitely you can share some your personal takes on how it is better to coordinate it like further, so that the direct aid like would fit Ukrainian community, like would align with Ukrainian communities' needs, but as well like meet energy security as it is. Because I remember there was something about solar panels that you were shipping to Mykolaiv region, right?
Yeah, we've taken solar panels to a couple of different regions. Our biggest sort of delivery was up in Chernihiv. I think one of the big collaborations that is needed can be generated through that sort of twinning of communities, where there may, if we are starting to create those regional partnerships and creating them across many different countries, we can work out what the best value is. For example, I'm a small organization. We have small vans. We've got a couple of HGVs coming our way now, which is exciting. But is it the best use of our petrol money and the best use of our vans to be driving them all the way from the UK? Yes, it delivers great, it delivers and caters for a need, but could we have a collaboration with somewhere in Poland that could be doing the same, and we could be putting, rather than using our funds for petrol money, we could be supporting that program instead. And I really think if we, as you were saying, we're working together now to find US places to twin with places that UK have, and just by expanding those links as NGOs and on the smaller humanitarian side, I think we can collaborate a lot better through that.
Thanks a lot. And bring in the most important, I think, always the missing part. And no matter are we about talking about the climate or we're talking about Ukraine, it's financing. And it's always about the money that is something that is directing our ways forward to backwards. And we could see it's like witnessing the recent climate negotiations for the previous 20 years, right? So financial part is super important. And I think I can't even think about the better well-placed person as Heather is. And Heather, from very weird question possibly, but how banks are seeing Ukraine these days with all of the challenges, including the energy challenges? Like from the perspective of the financial institutions, what are the prospects and biggest challenges that they see in Ukraine as the country?
Certainly. And I think, so risk, it's all about risk, isn't it? And I think just as you kind of listen to this, but also as you spend the next couple of weeks here, there's going to be a lot of talk about, you know, how do we get finance flowing to the global south? How we get finance flowing? It's the same conversation. It's about risk. So at a structural level, this is exactly the same. I think that's really important. This isn't necessarily just a Ukraine thing. There's a fundamental thing that's happening within our financial sector where we're having to redefine what value is and what risk is. And we've got a system that's very backward looking. And so often the regulatory structure that sits around finance, everything, you know, obviously banks, it's not banks' money, it's their depositors' money, or, you know, if it's a pension fund, it's not the fund's money, it's people's money. And so they've got a duty to not take undue risk with that and to get a good return. But then also there's this increasing need. And that's across kind of regulation, but also from shareholders and everything else saying, well, what impact is my money having? And so there's a really interesting thing happening right now where the system itself is kind of transitioning and trying to find new ways to measure things and to measure impact and to measure value. But we're not there, certainly. So right now, it's, you know, a sea of red flags that says risk, 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 risk. But that's where kind of new, or not even new, but innovative kind of blended finance kind of pieces come together that can help de-risk that. But I think the really key thing is what we're trying to do at this point is to move the financial system to a point, you know, what is the value? Not just the kind of initial return of an investment, but what is the value that having Ukraine be a secure, you know, have kind of independent energy security and potentially be a provider of energy to Europe, and thereby reducing, let's say, what is that value and how does that de-risk? And that's kind of areas that are still, you know, how that all gets, there's models for it and stuff, but it's still not completely, you know, built into that everyday decision-making process. And so that's one of the key things that we're looking at now is in the short term, how do we de-risk? And that's, you know, how do we get insurance in? How do you understand the capabilities on the ground? How do you aggregate projects? Because most of these projects are too small in and of themselves, and they become quite a kind of high cost of delivery for the amount required. So you need to be able to aggregate things so that it becomes more attractive to investors that you know don't like to go in for less than $1 billion or dollars or something like that. So how do you aggregate a whole series of these projects? How do you kind of track that progress on the ground? How do you make that efficient? But then, you know, hopefully in the long term, the ambition, of course, is that we start to recognize within our financial system the nuances of risk that are not just down to the bottom line.
Wow, thank you. It sounds very complex, but easy at the same time. But maybe one follow-up question. How international partners can contribute to making it faster? Because like Ukraine, we have this very high urgency of time, right? And when we are thinking long term, and like the war in Ukraine is very much, you know, reflecting the climate change of the war as well. So we are fighting the climate change and we are fighting like the big aggressor state. And in both cases, we don't have time. It's like the tickling bomb. So how we can make it faster, like how we can persuade the financial institutions around the world, like private finance. I don't know, I'm not the financial specialist, but like the only one thing that I can just like do it now.
Yeah.
Like how we can do it.
So really, this is really about what we call kind of your capital stacks. So how do you de-risk? And in a normal commercial transaction, a bank, you know, will go in and, you know, completely look at the risk reward profile over an amount of time. That's a cash flow forecast. In a less mature market, what we've traditionally done are blended financings where you potentially get some state guarantees or the MD, the multilateral development bank kind of guarantee that sits and helps de-risk. They kind of take the first slice of risk for it. Now, what we're finding now is that those kind of capital stacks are getting increasingly more nuanced and more specific. So you need to philanthropic capital. So rather than philanthropy just going in and putting money in to a project, they're leveraging their money and saying, okay, we'll take a slice of the risk along the way, that kind of first loss. And that then increases the appetite of others. Insurance, I mean, you know, government guarantees are just another form of insurance. But so kind of having more partners in the room, having a much more kind of sophisticated conversation as well around what the outcomes that they want are. So if you've got philanthropic capital in there, the return that philanthropic capital wants will be different than the return that you know, a pension fund requires. And so having those kind of more sophisticated discussions to tailor to the situation, and then also getting proper kind of risk analysis and analysts in there saying, well, how do we make sure that the governance around this is kind of transparent? How do we make sure the money's going where it needs to go? How do we know, you know, how do we actually measure our impact along the way? So it's kind of higher intensity, but this, again, back to the partnership piece, this is where the kind of collaboration of bringing in NGOs, and you know, there's an extraordinary amount of NGOs that actually really look at kind of how do you de-risk financing for things like this. So bringing them into the picture and helping with the governance, helping with the process, I guess, of not necessarily just implementation, but monitoring these things becomes an important part of that kind of de-risking framework. But I think the key thing, there's nothing off the shelf for these things anymore. And, you know, even typical blended finance would just be kind of a government guarantee or an MDB guarantee alongside some private capital, which is as close as you get to kind of off the shelf blended finance. It's just we're working in a much more complex area now. And so it is that kind of that area of collaboration, and also having policymakers in the room at that time, because ultimately, I'll give my fun facts. I can't help myself. 1492 was our first book on modern accounting. So in Italy. So we've had 500 years where all of our laws, all of our perceptions of value have built up over this perception. And we're having to cross a bridge and saying, actually, there's a new risk coming, and there's a new way that we need to measure value. And so we're saying, well, we need to get from A to B. There are so many blockers that are just built within a system that's evolved over hundreds of years. So you actually have to have policy people kind of around the table as well. So they go, well, actually, no, that is an irrational blocker that maybe we can start to unlock somehow, and whether that's at a global regulation or down at a local council level, because there's, you know, within planning laws, there's all these different metrics. And I don't think we can really underestimate how much our system has been built on, you know, we've built a road that goes in that direction. It's a well-trodden road, and we're having to change that And so the way that we work together is, you know, we need to work differently together to make these things work.
Wow, that's a very great, actually, no, thank you very much. And I was thinking at first to bring up to command, like, we're building resilience, but no, we're not even building the anti-fragility. We should opt for building something new and innovative approaches and bring innovative thinking into something that has become so robust that it's not able to respond to the challenges of the modern like world. Yeah, thanks. And well, then actually I would like now to go to those people who are facing these challenges exactly on the ground and who are dealing with these challenges every single day. And where these innovative solutions, I think these are the places where innovative solutions are being born, because like you cannot afford yourself not to be creative, because when you are in Ukraine, you have to be creative to survive and to support your people. And Mayor Cernyak, thank you very much for taking all of your time and, well, getting out from Ukraine here. It is quite of a challenge. Like, I don't know how many of you have been traveling from Ukraine recently, but it's already like the big sign of heroism, because you need to change so many types of transportation and go in it here to talk and to show international community where this resilience actually stems from. And can you please tell us what were the first energy challenges that your community faced and how you have been addressing them in the Mingo? Because it was 2022, we're in 2024, so in 2025, third challenge in winter, and you have been doing this all.
Thank you. For the first, I would like to tell you a very big thank you for possibility to be here, to be the part of COP29, and it's very important for us to have new experience for how to resolve our problems. And I would like to tell you very big thank you our European, our American partners for your help to our country, because without your support, we will not be a country, will be maybe in very big problem, and that we are independent, it's related with your help. So very big thank you for your helps and for help of United States of America, European countries, Great Britain, and another civilized countries. And when war started, it was a very big very big problem for us. For the first problem, it was in energy, it's electricity. We had to have generators in every our important place, in every water pump, every sewage treatment facility, every critical infrastructure. But we know that it is problem for our planet, because we don't want to use fuel, and it's very bad. So now we search for different opportunities to have solar panels, to have accumulator batteries, to have inverters. For example, this week we bought inverter and accumulatory batteries for our city council, and to another buildings, building of culture and our building of arts, because we know that in winter we can be in situation when maybe 20 hours we must be without electricity, and we must be ready for this situation. Now we search for solar panels and not to depend from another these problems and from electricity. So we try to be the part of different funds, to search for some funds for money, how to resolve our problems. For example, this year we we took place in Interreg Next Poland 2021-2027. It's so program, and we have to build solar panels in our sewage treatment facilities because it's very important critical infrastructure for our community, our villages and our town. And so we for example, we work with banks. We won some credit fund from European Investment Bank, and we will be modern our one school in village and our hospital in our town, and it's will be for economic very important for us because we will be pay less money for communal for gas, for electricity, and in the future we have the plan to be without fuels because we want to 2030 maybe in all our communal buildings not use fuels, only solar, only wind power, and we have one geyser in our town in a hospital, and we'll use it for heating our hospital and maybe another buildings. And it's very important, as said our colleagues, about partnership with another countries, another cities, because we are very interested in experience. For example, this week I was before this trip I was in Czech Republic with my colleagues from Lviv agglomeration. We have such organization with Lviv community and another 10 communities near Lviv, and we watched how Brno Metropolia, it's a city in Czech Republic, how it works, how they are united near a big city, and how they make good decisions with energy, with green renewable sources, and this is very interesting for us. So we are in process, in constant process to search for new partners in European countries, maybe in USA. It will be interesting to see how it works in developed country, and you was right that we have very big potential in Ukraine. It can be so base for Europe, how to build renewable sources, and how this practice we can go in another countries, maybe surround in the whole world. So it's very important, and Marshall Green Plan should become the main in this process, because we can rebuild Ukraine in a new view from zero to the example to another countries, maybe to the Baku, Azerbaijan. We saw with colleagues yesterday water. We know about fuels in Azerbaijan, so we must work and work to go to future.
From zero to net zero, right? Thanks a lot. Thank you, our panelists. And maybe before we open up the floor for the questions, very quick one, because we have to be aware of conscious of time. maybe 1, 2 phrases, your key takeaways, how to ensure that energy security, how to ensure energy security in Ukraine, and how to make energy security Marshall Plan work. 1 phrase. Alex, I think that you should be the first one, because today it's very important day as well for Alex. It's the Veterans Day, Remembrance Day, right? And maybe you can take it on from your experience being in the army, yeah? Because it's something, but you have to tackle urgency, and this is where you're reacting very fast. So how to make it work? And
In 1 phrase.
right.
From a military perspective, being energy secure is a warfighting advantage. And to continue that warfighting advantage, you need consistent and deliberate and long-term support that does not waver.
Imogen?
Yeah, I guess my thing would be keep making noise about this to anyone who will listen, whether that's politicians, local, federal, businesses, charities. We have to keep this conversation going, because all too often we're seeing that Ukraine is falling by the wayside to other conflicts. And yes, they're important issues, but we're coming up to the 3-year anniversary for a country that has never deserved any of this treatment, and so needs our continued support.
I'll probably just repeat myself, but collaboration and focus. So having that plan, having that long-term support and stuff, but also collaborating and bringing together people that you don't necessarily see as kind of partners and things to make things work.
Dear friends, we must think about our Earth planet, because we don't inherit it from our parents and our grandparents. We borrowed it from our children and our grandchildren. So we must make our Earth clean, and this conference and our conversation is closer and closer to this good goal. And Plan of Marshall, it's a very good idea that closes us to this good result.
And thank you so much. I think there are lots to think about, but I would call the audience that have been patient enough to deal with all of the technical challenges we had and to follow our conversations. Feel free to ask any question. Okay, yes. I think that's so much information to process. And this is the first day of the conference, right? And it would be very much, every single day would be quite of a challenge. But remember that Ukraine is dealing with a challenge every single day since 2014. And existential surviving it. It's actually not only when we're talking about the countries in war, but this is when we're talking about every single country. The crisis has affected and has been affecting and will be affecting us all. And urgent needs to ensure that we have secure, clean energy. It's the only possible way to secure the world for going more and more crazy and more mad. Thank you very much for taking part in our discussions and finding the time in Ukraine's pavilion. And thank you very much. And I wish you good luck for these intense 2 weeks, because there will be, but war, it's like climate change. We have to be all Ukrainians to continue fighting. Thanks.
Thank you for moderation.
Thank you.
Thank you for good conversation.
We should do a photo, right?
Yes, of course.
Oh, yeah.
Let's do the common photo and yeah.
Mhm.
I think our photographer has one.
Yes. Thank you.